So back in 2022, I got this calling to quit my medication for depression and anxiety. So I was on this medication for almost 15 years. It started when I was in high school, quite young. And back then, whenever you had some sort of mental condition, it was treated in a way that just like suppressed it and silenced it. I was not exposed to anything about enlightening yourself and transforming and self-healing. These things were just not known to me at all. It was not known in my community, in my family. It was quite foreign. So when I got this feeling, this deep inner body knowing to quit my medication after almost 15 years, I couldn't help but follow it, even though I didn't know what was going on. It didn't seem like it made sense because this was what I had been doing for so many years. This was how I was treating myself and taking care of myself. And because I had been on medication for such a long amount of time, I had been through various types of medication because it was just never working well for me. It made me feel really numb, and I was still very depressed and anxious, even though I was receiving treatment for it. So I had been through a number of medications, and I kind of had an idea of what the process would be like to end a medication. And so whatever I'm sharing now, I am absolutely not recommending that you do this without the guidance and support of a qualified medical professional, because it was quite hectic what I experienced. I did know that when ending any sort of medication, especially when you've been taking it for a long time, you need to do it gradually. It has to be done slowly, where you wean yourself off it after a number of weeks. And that is what I did. And I thought that I was going to be just fine, but I was not fine. I think I spent about 6 to 8 weeks weaning myself off this medication, and it was only after I took the very last pill. It was, I remember, 3 days after I took the very last pill, all the emotions broke loose. Everything that had been suppressed for more than a decade was now unleashed. And I was not prepared for this. And I really struggled. And I am learning now that when doing something like this, when taking such a huge step to make a change in your life, you do not have to do it alone. You do not have to do it without having support and without having knowledge on how to do it in the best way possible. And I tend to not have regrets because, you would never get to where you are had you not done everything in the way that you did it. But damn, I do kind of regret handling the ending of my medication in that way. There were withdrawal symptoms that were making me extremely tired and dizzy. I would be having these like lightning bolts going off in my head. It felt like lightning was striking different parts of my brain. And sometimes I would just have these moments of blacking out, and the emotional intensity was the worst that I had ever experienced. And things got quite dark, like emotionally. I was not in a good space, and I was starting to question, why do I even exist? If this is what life is, if this is it being so miserable and so hard and filled with so much suffering, why am I here? I don't want to be here. Everything was just going downhill. I was miserable in my job. I was unhappy in my marriage, and I was newly married. Like, this was now 1 year after I had just gotten married. I did not get to experience the honeymoon phase. Like, I was just so down, so depressed. Everything, every area of my life felt like it was horrible. I'm just going to be blunt. It was horrible. I didn't want to be here. And so being off the medication for an extended period of time, because during the 15 years, I did go through periods of trying to quit, and then I would just end up back on another one. So this was now the first time that I was off it for an extended period of time. And what I got to realize was that I now had space in my mind and in my body, like physically and energetically and emotionally, because I was not being clouded and suppressed by this medication. I now had space to think. I could now reflect on the quality of my life and the way that I felt, and I was really unhappy. Like, I think many of us who go through life not really conscious to what's happening, like how we're feeling, and things not being in alignment in our external world, we don't really question it. We just keep showing up and accepting and tolerating a reality that so does not resonate with us, but we don't question it. But now, being free of this medication, I now had space to question. I was not happy. And like that was the light bulb moment to realize that I was truly unhappy. And I didn't even have to do anything beyond that. It was just taking the time to have the realization. And that sort of set everything else off in motion. So shortly after having these realizations, I ended up meeting with a friend. Again, it's like quite random. You know, you're just having a catch up with a friend. We were having lunch on an ordinary day, but, you know, reflecting on it, it wasn't that random. It was meant to be. It was timed precisely when I needed it. So we're having this conversation over lunch, and my friend just mentions a book that he had purchased for a friend of theirs, because their friend was going through an illness. If I recall, it was terminal. So it seemed like there was not much hope for what they were going through, but my friend believed that they could heal themselves. And then I got really curious about what I was being told. So, this is my first time being exposed to the idea of you can heal yourself. And I'm hearing more about this book. And if you're interested to know what the book is, it is Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. So I'm hearing more about this book, about people having the ability to heal themselves, to heal their bodies, and to change their reality. It is something that we can do ourselves. We hold the power within ourselves. And I was so drawn to what I was hearing. And you must know that I did not read books at this phase of my life. I was really not into books for personal enjoyment, not at all. Like, if I think about the only books that I read were back in school, those set books and textbooks, like educational books for the purpose of getting through school. That was all I ever exposed myself to. And now I'm hearing about something else, personal transformation, spiritual transformation. Like, this was new, but something in me, like, clicked. A spark ignited. I was hooked to what I was hearing. But because I did not read books at the time, I was not immediately convinced to go and get myself that book. What I did end up doing was I searched for that book on my phone, on the internet, and I kept that browser tab open because I knew there's something about this book that I'm really drawn to, but I'm not ready. And that's so important, to acknowledge when you feel ready for a shift in your life, because if it doesn't come from you, then any attempt that is potentially forced on you will likely not have the best experience or even the best outcome. You truly must be ready for it. You must want it. You must want to make a change for yourself. And that is when absolute magic happens. So a few weeks went by and things were starting to get worse for the way that I felt, the way in which my life was happening. It felt like life was happening to me. It felt like everything was just going wrong. Relationships were breaking down, like in my personal life and in my professional life. Things were just so chaotic. And I was getting really desperate to like tap out. I just wanted out of this reality. I was done. You almost have to get to that point of just being done. And you'll be willing to do anything, accept anything, go through anything just to get out of this existence that you cannot take anymore. So that's where I was. And so I remembered, I have this book that is calling to me. Maybe it can help me. Like, I had the audacity to believe that I can heal the way that I feel. I can change my inner landscape and I can change my life. I have to believe it because, like, I've run out of options to exist in my current reality. So it's like definitely a bit of delusion was present for me to think, I'm going to change everything. I refuse to exist here anymore. And so I took the path of least resistance. I got a hold of an audio version of the book because remember, I do not read at this point of my life. So it was not going to happen any other way. I had to listen to it while I was traveling to work and back home. That was the only time that I was willing to expose myself to this knowledge. And I will say that this particular book is not an easy read. Maybe I felt that way because I did not read, so any book would have been a massive leap and too much, and the complexity of the information to take in, it was a lot. I still do believe that it is quite a higher grade English and knowledge type of book. So I must have retained like 1% of what I learned in that book. But that 1% was enough for me to change my life forever. And what I learned from that book was that the reality that you desire to create can only be done in the unknown. So, what that means is having the strength and the courage to walk away from what does not feel good, what you know has expired, and just what does not resonate with you. It's having that courage to leave it behind in whatever capacity feels right for you. And moving forward in life, taking whatever actions you feel called to take, and having no guarantees that anything is going to happen, or having any certainty that your path will go in a certain direction. You have to basically leave it up to life, leave it up to the universe to show you what is possible for you and what is best for you. But you have to move forward into that unknown. That is what I took away from that book. And so I started making quite rapid changes in my life, the way in which I approached just about everything, the way that I approached my emotional intensity. I stopped looking at my depression and anxiety as enemies, and I started looking at them as my friends. Again, delusion, but oh my word, it served me. It changed my life forever to start looking at these intense emotions as beings of their own that were here with me, that were walking through life with me and really only wanted the best for me. They were guiding me away from what was not right for me and what was actually best for me, guiding me towards what was best for me. So changing my mindset when it came to what I was going through on the inside, changing the way that I approached my relationships. So in the past, I often shied away from having confrontations because I was most often disrespected, disempowered, ignored, abandoned. The list goes on. And because I was approaching life differently, I was now making different choices. I was going up to people, letting them know how I truly felt. I was now making bold moves. So I left my job twice with, okay, I've done it more than that, but now I was doing it consciously, where I walked away from working environments that I did not feel truly respected me and valued what I was offering. I held the strength and the courage to walk away, even though I had no idea what was coming next. So I did not have anything like lined up on the side. I did not have any guarantees. This was me just go and play in the unknown, continue to walk away from what does not feel right and keep moving forward, and the answers will arrive. And that is what I did. I kept walking away. So not just from jobs, but also from friendships and family relationships, wherever I felt like I was just not being treated in a humane, civil way. I was done. I was out. And as I continued to do this, it was terrifying. So I'm not going to like sugarcoat it and be like, oh, it was an amazing journey of transforming my life and walking away. It was horrible. It was so scary. It was terrifying. I was like shaking most of the time, shaking, crying, not knowing how on earth I was going to get to where I needed to go, how I was going to survive wherever I ended up. But I kept on going. And that is where I learned that is what true courage is. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is not the absence of trembling inside, internally and physically. It is not the absence of those scary, depressing feelings. It is being willing to do what needs to be done and continuing to walk forward and to hold your head up, even if you are crying, to keep on going. That is what courage is. And I got to learn that I'm a freaking badass. Like, yeah, I may look like an absolute wreck. I may look like one of the most weakest people with the way that I'm breaking down, but the fact that I'm moving forward and holding this unshakable faith that things will get better, this makes me one of the strongest people I know. And I will fully sound conceited if I have to, because it's the truth. It's my truth. And so, as I continued to move forward and facing my fears, walking away from what did not serve me. A chain reaction occurred where more books started to find their way to me. So that is actually how the knowledge found me. It's not like I found a mentor or a guide like a physical person. It's not like I went to spiritual school or anything like that. Books literally found me, one book at a time, when I was reaching different phases of this journey of transformation. And I kept following the guidance that I was learning from these books. And what I didn't know at the time was that I was actually having a spiritual awakening through reading these books and taking these actions. The important part in the spiritual awakening is the fact that I was taking aligned action. It's one thing to read and to hold the information in your mind, but it is a completely different thing to actually go out there and make things happen. So looking back, that spiritual awakening started back in 2022. I just did not know it at the time because, like, first time I'm exposed to any of this, I didn't know what it was. And I continued going down this path for 2 years. And it was in 2024 that things really shifted. So things were shifting in that time, but things came to a head. It felt like a complete life destruction explosion, but in the best way, where I had to make the very, very difficult decision to walk away from my job and my career forever. So this was no longer a situation of, I'm going to leave this place that I don't feel good in and I'm going to find another one. This was completely different. So there was an occurrence, a confrontation at my workplace that led to me to make this decision. But ultimately, it was my choice. And when I looked at the deeper meaning behind why this was happening, because like this came out of nowhere, I was caught off guard with the way in which things happened and exploded. So because I was on this spiritual path and I was looking at things differently, and I was always looking for the lesson to be learned in any difficult situation, when this thing happened, I immediately saw, oh my goodness, I'm being given an opportunity to end this chapter of my life because it is not good for me. I learned a lot. I have grown so much from it, and no regrets that I went on this 10-year journey of being in my corporate career. But I now reached a stage where the person that I had become was no longer a match for the environment. And so, again, moving into the unknown with no plan, no guarantees, no certainty, I made that decision. I surrendered. Something that I learned from one of the books that found its way to me. I surrendered. And I made a wish to the universe to please give me a way forward. Because I knew that I was no longer in a good space for me. I needed to leave this job and I needed to leave this career path. But like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to take care of myself financially. Like, it's not going to work. The way that things were at that time, it was not going to be possible for me to leave. And so instead of destroying myself, trying to figure out how on earth am I going to make this happen, I made a wish to the universe and I asked for help. And I was a bit feisty to give the universe a deadline because of what was happening at work and me needing to make a decision. There was a bit of a timeline that I needed to give my response, whether I was going to stay or not. And so I told the universe, please show me a way forward within a month. Please. Like, I'm at the end of the road now. I can't. I don't know. I thought that I was smart. I don't know. Please help me. And so I let it go. And again, it was not pretty and smooth sailing. I was destroyed by what was happening in my life. I was breaking down every day. And it was after 3 weeks that I made that wish, that the answers arrived. So a number of things happened. My husband was offered a new job opportunity with an increase in his salary that would make it possible for me to leave my job and my career. Another thing that happened was that I was guided to my very first oracle deck. And that was the thing that kickstarted my journey as an intuitive reader. When I did my very first reading, it actually explained the situation that I was in and that it was necessary for me to move forward into darkness because that was the best thing for me. I was not given clear answers on where I was going. The only thing that I was shown was that I needed to move through this phase of discomfort and uncertainty. I needed to be really strong, and that what would find me on the other side is a feeling of wealth and prosperity and safety and security more than I have ever known. That's all I was given. And I had to trust what I saw in the cards. I had to trust what I felt. And I took the leap. I made the decision to leave. And it was not in the way that I hoped it would be. So my ego was very much, okay, I'm going to step away and then I'm going to try to make something happen pretty much instantly. I'm going to try to build my own business. I didn't even know what the business was going to be, but I was just fixated on making something happen. But what actually needed to happen was a breaking down of the person that I was, the very scared, afraid, disempowered, lonely person that I used to be. Disconnected from myself, disconnected from the people on this planet, disconnected from the actual planet. That version of me needed to die. And it was not cool. It was not pretty. And I feel like I'm not really selling this journey of transformation really well. Like, I don't know if it was just me. I don't know if some people get to experience a really exciting and blissful, liberating journey. I definitely did have moments like that, but the majority of the year that followed when I left my career was just destruction and devastation and so much grief. I couldn't understand why I held so much grief. And now, being on the other side of it, I was grieving the loss of who I was, because that was a person, that was an actual human being. And although it was not a physical death, it still was a death. And being on this earth, being in this form, means that we will lose things, we will lose people, we will lose versions of ourselves. And grieving is part of the journey. And as much as I tried so hard to ignore that part. I tried to rush it. I tried to suppress it. It couldn't. It couldn't be ignored. It needed to come out. And I finally decided, I finally made a deal with my ego that I'm going to let this grieving, destructive phase happen. As much as I wanted to jump back into the working world by a certain date and in a certain way, I had to just let everything go and say to myself, when I'm ready, I will know. I don't need to force anything. And what happened in that year was a lot of relationships, mostly friendships, and a lot of habits, like pushing myself to do things that didn't really resonate with who I was becoming, that didn't resonate with my values, the type of person that I am. Anything that I did so that I would look good to the outside world, so that I could potentially please others, I stopped all of that. And similar to when I ended my medication, that act, or those multiple acts of empowering myself, ended up creating more space within me, more energetic, mental, emotional space. And so it was around the beginning of 2025 that I got the deep inspiration to launch my own spiritual business. It was always something that I felt called towards, but back when I left my career, I had no idea what I was going to do, how I was going to make it happen. And I didn't want to do just anything. I wanted to really be committed and devoted to whatever I was going to offer. So I'm glad that I really took my time to let it find me. And so I launched my business in June 2025 as an intuitive reader using tools like astrology, numerology, and of course, oracle cards. And I'm also learning tarot as well. As I started doing this, things started changing within me. The way that I felt just when I woke up each day, I was noticing I no longer feel like I don't want to be here. I want to be here. This journey of transforming made me realize that I came here to go through this. And the only way to know what it is like to really want to be here, to commit to your life, to your path, to your purpose, to experience deeper meaning and fulfillment in this life, the only way to have that is to know what the opposite is. That's how we can truly appreciate it. And so experiencing life in this way allowed me to move differently, allowed me to show up with more enthusiasm and optimism. I got the inspiration to start writing. This was something that I envisioned back in 2022 when I was just starting to think, can I change my life? I'm going to do this. I don't know how. I'm going to do it. Back then, when I closed my eyes and I saw what my future self looked like, that version of me was sitting in a cabin amongst the mountains, and they were writing. I'm pretty sure that it was a typewriter. A bit far, like it's quite a stretch for me to work with a typewriter, but that was what I saw. And it's actually been unfolding. I've been writing things that I didn't know that I could write. I've been writing about really painful experiences that I've been through, but now I'm seeing it differently. I'm seeing it as initiations that I chose to go through in this life so that I could come out with greater wisdom, with more strength, with a greater capacity to love and care for myself and others. And so, as I allowed myself to be on this journey, to immerse myself in what was finding me, more books, even more books found its way to me, more oracle decks found their way to me. And it became really clear that the support that I have in my life at this time is through books. This is how my life changed. I do not discount the value that came from my close family members and close friends and even coaches and therapists that walked with me on this journey over the last few years. They were absolutely needed and valued and appreciated. However, the connection that I developed with books is something that I cannot describe, and it is so strong that I actually feel that the books are people. They're people on their own. They're not the authors that wrote them. That's just how I see it. Yes, part of the author is infused into that book because that book would not exist without the author. But once the author lets it out into the world, the book is a being of its own. It's like having a child. It's like giving birth. There'll always be a part of you in this being, but this being has its own life, its own mission, its own purpose. And books found me exactly when I needed it. And it has been one of the most amazing, fulfilling experiences I've had in my entire life. It has changed things for me. Just the fact that I want to be here. I'm excited to be here, to see what life has to offer me, to see what I have to offer life, and to know that I hold the power to make my life better, to have the kinds of experiences that I dream of having. I can do that. I don't think that I would be here if it were not for all of those books and oracle decks that found me and held my hand through the greatest transformation period of my life.